Do the Detroit Pistons have a move coming up soon, hopefully in the next few hours? And what could that move look like? We'll talk about that in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Ku Khahil. You can find me over on Twitter at Ku Khahil. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by Robinhood. Robinhood Gold provides the privilege. The privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. And before we get into today's episode, I've had a few of you guys tell me that you feel like my audio's been a little quieter lately. Let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter if the volume seems fine. I turned it up. Usually you guys tell me I'm a little too loud, so I turned it down a little bit, but sounds like you guys think I'm a little too quiet now. So just let me know if it sounds good as of now. But we are joined by friend of the podcast, first time ever on the podcast, Matt. Welcome to the podcast. Appreciate you coming on. How you doing, man?
I'm very good. I appreciate you having me on. I'm excited to be here. I am a daily listener, or at least almost daily listener. So as excited as I am to be here, I'm not excited to get to work tomorrow and be like, I got no reason to listen to Locked On Pistons because I was on it.
Hopefully you find something else to get you through work, but
I will. I've got a long podcast rotation. It's a little bit of a dynasty. So you're a part of I consider my podcast rotation a dynasty. We're in our 2023 Warriors stages. Zach Lowe has left. JJ Redick has left, but we still got Steph Curry is the dunker spot. And Ku, you're like Kevon Looney or something, which is not supposed to be slander, to be clear. He's a very important player. So,
but okay, let's get into the news that happened over the weekend. So we are recording this at 8:20 p.m. on the 15th. Now, I waited, me and Matt, we waited as long as possible for like something to happen. And if you don't get what I'm talking about right now, so the Pistons waived Paul Reed on, I believe, Saturday, right? Saturday, which is a big deal because that brings the Pistons to 13 players on their roster. And it also dips them below the cap floor. So they have to get back up to the cap floor, and they only have 24 hours to do so. This is a tweet from Keith Smith, who is in charge of Spotrac. He says, my eyebrows are raised a bit at Detroit waiving Paul Reed now versus waiting. The Pistons have $15.5 million in cap space and 2 open roster spots, the only team with cap space. Also important, going up to $15.5 million cap space gives Detroit more room than any other team has with the 12.89 tax mid-level exception. However, the most important part about this is that they dropped below the salary floor, and by my reading, which is Keith's words, Detroit will have 1 day to get over the salary floor. That means the Pistons have to do something tomorrow. So the Pistons have to do some kind of move before midnight tonight, or they are not going to reach the salary floor. They have 24 hours to do so. However, we're at 8:20 p.m. and nothing has happened yet. Matt, do you have any idea of what you think they could be doing? Do you think it's just going to be as boring as maybe signing a vet minimum player off free agency or bring up a G League guy? What do you think could be in stake here?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that, well, initially my head kind of was like, okay, I think that maybe this could be opening up a spot for Alondes Williams because I thought he's looked pretty good. And you've talked a lot about it on here, and I think a lot of people echo the sentiment, like we need more ball handling, and he is a real guard, like who can get downhill a little bit and create some offense for you. I think he leads the league in points per 75, if I'm not mistaken, at like 53. So maybe he's earned a few more minutes, but the fact that it was Paul Reed waived, that leaves us very short in the center rotation. We don't really have a third guy that you do want to just throw at the 5. I suppose you can make the case that it's Asar, which, I mean, we've seen some Asar at the 5 lineups recently. So maybe it is just as simple as, hey, they're going to play Asar at the 5 a little bit more when they really need to. And like you said, I don't know what they're going to do with the cap. It's a great question. Markelle Fultz, question mark. Dennis Smith Jr., question mark. I thought trade would be opened up. And maybe that's why it's taking so long. Because you would think if they were signing a free agent, they would have just done it by now. So,
yeah,
I don't know.
And the interesting thing about it, too, is that today they did it the day before December 15th, which I've said it on the podcast a few times. Obviously, you know this, Matt, but December 15th is where 90%, north of 90% of the league becomes available to be traded. It's when players who just signed contracts in free agency this past year can now be traded. So a lot of people, including myself, thought, okay, there must be something coming here. There must be a trade they're trying to do. They must be trying to absorb some salary. And because they only have 24 hours or by the end of the day to make that move, I had to assume they had something lined up. But you brought up another thing that I've been, thinking about is that a lot of people have thought about, okay, are they going after Markelle Fultz? Are they going after a point guard, a vet PG off the free agency market? But without Paul Reed now, I mean, we just saw Duren get banged up a few games ago. Tobias Harris is out, which we'll talk about later, but he's another guy that maybe they've tried running as a small ball 5 at times, but he's not a 5 at all. So you really only have Stu and Duren, and Duren's injury prone so far, and he's already gotten banged up. So you're kind of thin at that point. Like, you have to be thinking that, okay, then they have to be going after another big. So would it be through the free agency market? Would it be through trades? I mean, we're at close to 8:30 yet, or 30 by now, and still no move has been made. I do agree that if they were just signing a free agent or just elevating a G League guy, I feel like that would have happened by now. So it makes me feel like that there is still a possibility for a trade coming, which I think would have everyone excited. But it's also, again, there's also the possibility they just go ahead and be boring and just bring up a G League guy.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think Bobby Clement was
yes, he's been assigned down to the G League.
He's active now. Yeah. So when that happened, I was like, okay, I don't know. There's something shuffling in the organization that could lead to it. But when you lay it all out, like, I feel like your mind's got to kind of go to trade, right? Now, what are they going to trade for? Who are they going to trade? It's tough to know. It's been a weird trade market up to this point a little bit. Like, I don't think people kind of had the Schroeder trade. I think that people knew Schroeder may have gotten traded, but that trade in particular, I think everybody thought Golden State was loading up for something big. Maybe Schroeder is big. I mean, he's had a good year. So, but they need a big. they need somebody who can play center, and how they acquire that, I don't know.
And with them having this much cap space now, they can take on larger salaries. So we know that Trajan talked about all throughout offseason that he wants to get assets, that they want to, take on. That was the idea of the whole offseason. They weren't really able to do it. They did a little bit with THJ, but I don't feel like they were really able to do it how they wanted to. So they still have cap space right now to take on a larger contract if they wanted to for some picks. But are there any teams across the league that are at the point already to where we're like, okay, we're punting off a contract and we're going to attach assets to it at this point? Do you see a team out there?
I mean, I suppose that there could be, and I'm not as tapped into the rest of the league as I am with the Pistons, but I'm a little bit tapped in. I think that there are teams that are probably looking forward and are like, okay, this is a lost season. I think you look at a team like New Orleans, who is 5-21, maybe 5-22 now. Everybody's getting hurt. Like, it's a season from hell. That's what it is. It could not be going worse. Their season's done, essentially a tank year now. In that Western Conference, it's not like the East over there, right? You can't be the Sixers. You can't just do nothing for 14 games and then climb yourself back into the playoffs, or Milwaukee. So, I mean, CJ McCollum's a guy on their team that's got a big salary that I think could be moved. I think you saw some Herb Jones rumors, which excited me quite a bit. I don't know how much to believe in them. Or if just
to comment on that real quick, Mark Stein and Jake Fisher just put out a report, I believe, like 15 minutes ago, that said that the Pelicans are willing to move off anybody but Trey Murphy and Herb Jones. So it sounds like that they are basically in sell mode because of, like you mentioned, they're just in injury hell right now. Like I don't know what happened, but they've gotten absolutely screwed by injury. Real quickly before we get back to the Pistons, Matt, I don't know if you just got that notey, but Dan Campbell just said he thinks Lee McNeil and Carlton Davis suffered season-ending injuries.
Oh,
so God. It's officially worry time for the Lions. Like it is officially worry time. Officially worry time.
Locked on Lions. Here we are. I'm sorry. I thought the Lions were going to win the Super Bowl. I really did for a lot of the year. I just can't, in good conscience, be like the Lions are the best team in the NFC. I just can't. I'm sorry. You can.
I've never seen a team have this many injuries in my life. Like, this is actually like the one season that we all have that's been fantastic, and it's about to just be like not about to be. It is. It's been destroyed by injury. Like, there's no way that anyone can say with a straight face. I mean, I don't know how they stop anyone. they have almost all of their starters on IR. Like, it's just, I don't know.
You can't do anything with that. There's nothing to be done about that. You can't really blame anybody either. It's just,
It's just sad. But yeah, I mean, look, we're past 8:30, about to be past 8:30, and still no move. So make sure you guys are staying tuned. Have your phones out, have your notifications on, because the move should be coming soon. They have to, unless there's going to be some kind of penalty. I don't know what exactly the penalty is. It has something to do with tax, not having to pay the tax or not getting that tax back. Something about the second apron or some kind of tax level that the owners want to get, whatever. Something they won't just openly want to take on. They wouldn't do that. That doesn't make any sense. So a move has to be coming soon. So we'll see what they do. I hope that it's a trade. I hope it's something interesting to open up some things for the team. And maybe we might even get into that when we come back, because I want to talk with Matt about how the Pistons can get back on track. They've really struggled over the last month and a half. I talked about this in the last episode. Over the last 12-ish, 13, 14 games, they're 25th in net rating, 23rd in defensive rating. They've lost a ton of games. If it wasn't for a New York Knicks Cade classic game, they would be 2-9 in their last 11 games. How can the Pistons get back on track? We'll talk about that when we come back. Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.25% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Then I got to tell you guys about another one of our sponsors. That is BetterHelp. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Give online therapy a try at BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA and get on your way to being your best self. How do you stay cozy during the winter months? For some, wrapping up in a blanket with a mug of hot chocolate or watching a movie with the family is the best way to spend the month of December. Therapy is a great way to bring yourself some comfort that never goes away, even when the season changes. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Find comfort this December with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month with BetterHelp. So I want to thank you guys again for being Locked On Pistons, your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. All right. If you guys see me looking down at my phone, it's because I'm waiting. I keep getting notifications. I'm hoping it's the Shams notification that tells us what the Pistons are doing. But maybe that doesn't happen until I'm asleep, because that's usually how it always goes. Or we'll probably be at the end of the third segment, and then something will happen, and then just, it's just my luck. No, not part. I got work in the morning, dog.
So do I. Some of us are built for it, I guess. I don't know.
All right. So, Matt, I've talked about on the podcast a lot the last few episodes, especially the last episode where the Pistons obviously got destroyed by Boston. But it wasn't just the Boston game. I said it multiple times. It's not just about the Boston game. It's about the fact the Pistons seem to be unraveling over the last 15-ish games. And JB Bickerstaff was asked about this at practice today, or earlier on Saturday morning, but whenever you guys are listening to this, about their defense unraveling a bit. And he gave a lengthy response about how they're trying to get their defense back on track, because after the first 10-ish games, they were obviously sixth in defense. I don't think anyone expected them to stay there because of the defensive personnel they do have is not that great. But they've slipped all the way down to 25th. Their offense hasn't taken up enough of the responsibility to make up for it. And now they've also fallen to 23rd in net rating over the last 15-ish games, around 13 to 15 games. So they're not playing well. And like I said earlier, if it wasn't for a Cade classic game at New York, they're 2-9 in their last 11 games. So things are not going well. If you've been watching the games, it hasn't looked good. How do you think they can get back on track? Or whichever way you want to go with it? How can they get back on track? Or you can talk about what's really caused them to get off track.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's tough to pinpoint what I think has gotten them off track, or exactly if there's like one thing that they need to change to get them off track. But I think that it felt a little bit, I don't know about you, but it felt a little bit predictable to me. Now, I had questions about the defense early on when it was, oh, the Pistons have the 6th ranked defense. And we all knew that the Pistons weren't one of the 7 or 8 best defenses in the league, no doubt about it. But I was like, I mean, they are playing well, and Asar's coming back. Maybe they do kind of simmer around 10th, 11th, 12th in the league. And I was an idiot. I was wrong. That's not the case. I do think like it's tough. What is the defense kind of hanging their hat on, right? It's not a defense that generates a ton of turnovers. It's not a defense with particularly good rim protection or good rim protection or mediocre rim protection. It is not a defense that, it's not like we don't limit 3-point attempts. We're kind of middle of the pack in seemingly everything. And there are things that the defense does well. I think that like the rotations seem pretty crisp. I think that like you don't see a ton of like miscommunications on the defense. I think that you feel comfortable switching a lot of guys, 1 through 4, most especially. So they do things well. They do things effectively. They rebound, right? Like they secure stops. That's all well and good, but I struggle to really buy into an identity, which is hilarious because I watch every Pistons game. I watch every minute. And I was like, we were 15, 16, 17 games into this season. And I was on my podcast, Teal or No Teal, check it out. I was on my podcast just like, what do I even make? Like, I have less analysis about the Pistons defense than I do about 25 of the other teams because I don't really know what separates us. I don't really know why we stand out. Like this just feels like kind of a middling defense. And it feels like we're cratering back toward. Now, I don't think we're as bad as we have been in the last 7 or 8 games either. I think that we're going to find a happy medium probably around 18 or 19. That's my guess.
See, I even have concerns about getting to 18 or 19. I think the main issue that the Pistons have had, there's 2 main issues, and then we'll talk about what they can do to maybe get it back on track. But the 2 main issues for why they've gotten off track to me is their defense is falling to where I expected it to. I spoke about this in the first few weeks in the podcast that their defense was really punching above their weight for the first few weeks. They don't have great defensive personnel. Now, Asar is back, but he can't even play longer than 2-minute stretches. So you're not even really getting the benefit of having Asar on the court, which, by the way, eventually we need to discuss whether this is even the best solution for him to get 2-minute stretches and sit down. Would it be better just to go down to the G League? But we'll discuss that another time. But the first concern is obviously the defense. I don't think they have good personnel. So it's hard for me to see how they get back up towards where you kind of feel comfortable with them because outside of Cade, Stu, Ron Holland, and Asar, and a lot of those guys you can't play together on the court. You can't play them within the same lineup. You just don't have very many good defenders, especially at the point of attack. Their point of attack defense is horrible, just straight horrible.
It's like when Beasley is in, it's like the point of attack defense gets better. And it's like, that shouldn't really happen.
Right.
Like there shouldn't be a noticeable change, I think. Beasley is like the baseline of like competent NBA defender.
I mean, and that's what happens when you have THJ and Jaden Ivey guarding your like point of attack defenders or point of attack offensive players. And again, that's not to attack a Jaden Ivey or even to attack a THJ. We know they're not good defenders, but the Pistons are asking them to be their main point of attack guys. So at that point, your defense is going to start falling apart from the very top. Like it's just, as soon as that happens, then that whole defense will break down. So I think that's number 1, what's happening. And then number 2, I mean, I tweeted this out today. The Pistons, and again, we're recording this. We still have not seen a move happen. If they do make a move, I'm begging them to go get an isolation scorer or get some guy that can handle the ball and really score the basketball. This team has nobody outside of Cade that can really create, and you're starting to see that really get taken advantage of. You're starting to see defenses just key completely in on Cade. I looked at the numbers earlier. They're 27th in the entire NBA in isolation points per possession. It's horrible. They don't have anyone on their team that can go create a bucket and just go score the basketball, which is killing them. And even when Cade leaves the floor, they don't have anyone they can really trust to run the offense. And Jaden Ivey is someone who's started out the year hot, but just hasn't. He's kind of not fallen off, but cooled down. You can say that. I'm not going to. I'll let you. He's cooling off over the last few weeks. So you really are just left. You're not going to ask Tobias to do it. You're not going to ask THJ to do it. You're not going to ask, all these other guys. Like, you just don't have it. So their defense from the point of attack is falling apart, and then they don't have anyone else outside of Cade that's a reliable scorer, ball handler, etc. And it's really killing them on the offensive end of the floor. So now that we've talked about what's hurting them, how do you think they can get back on track?
Yeah, I do want to pause there and go back to your point about the team needing another scorer, more creation. You're totally right that they do, and I'm not even positive that it has to come from the guard position because, well, I'll first say this. As excited as everybody was about Jaden Ivey at the start of the season, and I was one of them. I was like, oh my God, he looks more decisive off the catch. It feels like he's getting to the rim with a little bit more of a plan. I feel like we're controlling things. We're understanding how to, change our pace a little bit, get to pull-ups here and there, knocking down more catch-and-shoot threes, and he is knocking down more catch-and-shoot threes this season. That is true. However, looking back at last season, the season that fell from Jaden Ivey, when Monty Williams ruined everything. And Monty Williams did ruin everything, to be clear, but from last season to this season, Jaden Ivey's free throw rate is down. His efficiency is down. It's comfortably below league average. The turnovers are up. The mid-range percentages are down. He can't shoot from the corners. The rim frequencies are up, which is good. He's getting blocked a lot less, which is interesting. Used to get blocked on 16% of his layups. Now it's only 7%. That's a good plus. But the ISO numbers are worse. The bad pass turnover percentage is up. Like, he's kind of only a good transition player theoretically. Like, it doesn't really equate. Like, we're in transition less in the Jaden Ivey lineups without Cade than we are in the Cade lineups without Jaden Ivey, which is crazy to me. I never would have expected that. Cade loves to play slow. It's like one of my big, I guess, negatives. As much as I love Cade, I just wish that he would be a little bit happier to play faster. I wish we could get into offense with 17 on the clock instead of 14 or 13 on the clock, right? But we play faster with Cade. We're in transition more with Cade. He's not particularly efficient in transition either, just because he's not a good finisher. It's not great. It hasn't been a great Ivy season when you really look at the totality of everything. As excited as we were, Ku's over here laughing, and he doesn't want to agree with me. He muted his mic so that you can't hear him nodding his head. But it's been tough. It's been a tough season, and that's why we have no creation, is because our second creator has been bad, and our third creator, Tobias Harris, not a creator. I don't want him creating anything. I'm happy that we gave up the Tobias post-ups, I will say. Those were tough. Those were tough to watch. But you're right. We do need another creator. The problem is we need more than that. And so, I don't know that creator's at the top of my priority list going into the deadline. I do want more ball handling. Point of attack defense is the first thing, because I think as much as we harp on how bad Jalen Duren is defensively, and I'm not here to tell you that he isn't bad. He sure is. But it's tough to be like an anchor center or be a drop center without a good screen navigator. Like, it's basically impossible. You're asking him to play 2-on-1 over and over again. And big credit to Isaiah Stewart for cleaning up a lot of those messes, putting out a lot of fires. He has been, but I don't know that what we're expecting out of Jalen Duren is completely fair, right? Like, you think about the Bucks. Brook Lopez went from defensive player of the year level, lost Drew Holiday, who was putting pressure on ball handlers while Brook could sit back in his drop, but those guys could never be comfortable, even if Brook was 9 feet away from him. We don't he loses Drew, and he's nowhere near that level anymore, right? Like, that's kind of the idea, and that's obviously we're not going to get Drew Holiday or anything, but I digress. What was your question?
Matt told me before the podcast he had this rant coming. He told you.
I didn't. No, I was just like, can we talk about Ivy? That's all I asked. And he was like, no, we cannot. It's not allowed.
It's not allowed for me to talk about Ivy. If I said any of that, I'd be burned at the stage. Like, it'd be over. I'd have pitchforks and everything outside my apartment right now. So, but I can't say I disagree with. I'll just say I can't disagree with anything you said. We do have to get to the ads real quick, but when we come back, we'll push the Tobias being out. That's not even that big of a deal. We can just move that off the schedule. Let's talk about when we come back what they can do to get back on track and kind of get things going in the right direction. Starting with their game against Miami on Monday night after having a long extended break. Only one game in 9 days. Great for them to get recovered. So we'll talk about what they have to do when we come back. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. And as I've told you guys many times before, a few years ago, I started up on FanDuel, have not turned back since. I still use it to this day. It's super fun to use, super easy to use, super self-explanatory, but most importantly, super fun to use. So again, head over to FanDuel.com and you'll get started $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. It's another great way to support the podcast. All right, so we are now into the third segment, and we still have not had a move happen. This is usually how it always goes. I can never just get – the Pistons do this on purpose, man. Every single time. I can never just get it to happen right before the podcast or at least like during the middle of it so I can talk about it. So probably what's going to happen here – podcast will end. I'll start editing, and then we'll have a move happen. And I'll have to record a second one tomorrow. So that's just fun. I love what the Pistons look out for me. But all right,
was that the last ad break?
Yes.
I was hoping I got a live hymns ad.
No hymns. No, not hymns today. Not hymns today. All right, Matt, what can the Pistons do to get back on track? Do you think there is even my goodness, I'm stumbling over myself today. Is there even a way for them to get back on track without making like a trade or something?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I mean, obviously the best adjustment is play better, right? Like that's the best adjustment any coach can make. Any button you press will not be better than the play better button. But what can get them back on track? I think, well, one, we need the shooters to keep shooting. Well, the shooters who are currently shooting. Tobias needs to keep shooting well is really what I'm saying. I would love to see. I don't know about you. I'm not like super in favor of any lineup changes right now. I don't know if you disagree. I get the call for Duren versus Stewart. I think that it's tough because it's like then you kind of take Stewart out of the role that he's been playing so well, and you're like, okay, like go try to clean up this mess here. And not that it's unfair, obviously, but I like what he's done at the back of five, so I wouldn't mind keeping him there. And like Jalen Duren, as much as they've it feels like, I don't know, it feels like they've started to phase him out of sort of like the fabric of the offense lately, if that makes sense. Like run less through him. He's not like early in the season, it felt like every secondary action ran through Jalen Duren, right? Like if whatever your first look was didn't open up, the second action was running something through Duren at the high post, using him as a hub. And that's great. Like that is kind of the talent that separates him, no doubt about it. But it isn't wielding the best results. I don't think I don't have the numbers. I know that you've got access to
we know that we know it hasn't been doing the best numbers because they've slowly, like you said, as the season went on, just completely phased them out of the offense.
Right. And I mean, the more that you do that, it does feel like there's more incentive to just start Stu, right? Like it's not changing a whole lot about what you do offensively. Really, he's been a better pick and roll guy, like finisher this season. Jalen Duren's been really bad around the rim, by the way, which is kind of an underrated point that I think not a lot of people are talking about. Like his layup percentage has dropped drastically from last season, unfortunately. So I was one of the last holdouts of Jalen Duren hope. It is certainly fading away a little bit for me here. But yeah, I mean, you just kind of got to keep leaning into Stu a little bit more. Hope that Ivey regains the form that he had at the start of the season. I know I talked all about the problems with him right now, and I didn't even bring up defensively. Like I said all that, and it's like all he does is score. Like that's what you do is score. You're just a scorer. Like, it's not like Jaden Ivey is providing a whole more than scoring punch. Really, I mean, until the playmaking kind of catches up with him, but he's not doing that well right now, and he hasn't throughout his career. So that's a little bit of a problem. But if he can return to the form that he was at the start of the season, that'd be great. You do got to kind of keep believing in him because he is your second most dynamic guy on this basketball team, right? So you don't really have a choice. Just hope Ivey gets through whatever little slump he's on right now. Hopefully it's a slump.
So the lineup changes. I've said the same kind of concerns that you voiced, that Stu has been the better five, but do you want to move Stu out of the role that he's finally thriving in to start because the person ahead of him is not playing well enough? Now, what happens if Stu now goes to the starting five and he doesn't play as good because now he's going in a position that we've seen him.
Can you do it back? If you take Duren out of the starting lineup, like that's kind of it's kind of tough to go back on something like that, I think.
Right, and I've said that before as well. Like, what happens to Duran psyche? What are you telling Duran? How is he going to respond to that? So it's a tough situation to really navigate with that. Though I do think the team is obviously better right now with Stu. Like there's more things that go into it. The coach has to handle personalities in the locker room, and will Stu provide the same type of value as a starter than he does as a backup five? It's it's not as easy as just start Stu. I do think they should really consider it. I won't be mad if they do it. I definitely I would like it if they did, but it's not strong enough to where I'm going to push outright for it because I understand the concerns that may come with it. There's one lineup change that I would do, and again, it goes back to what I talked about in the last episode. You can't even do this because he can't play more than 2 minutes. But I would start Asar instead of THJ, and then have
100%.
Asar be your point of attack guy. Because I think you kind of see them using Asar in the brief stretches as like a 4-man. He's guarding like guys bigger than him, and you're seeing that he's not that great at that. That's not where Asar is like the all-world defender. He's great at the point of attack. Like that's what separates him. He can switch, but the main position guarding should not be the 4-man. He's not strong enough for that. He's slender. Like he's a fantastic point of attack defender. We haven't even got to see him play at the point of attack because of the lineups he's been with. So I would start Asar as soon as he's able to play like legit minutes, and he'll be your point of attack guy. I think that would solve a lot for their defense. It would do a ton for them to have him. But until he can play longer stretches, the only thing I think they can do is I don't see the defense bouncing back without Asar playing full minutes. I don't see that happening. So I think that it really falls down to the offense having to catch up with how much resources you put into it. You need Tobias to start playing better. You need him to start scoring better. You need Jaden Ivey to get back to the flashes we saw at the beginning of the year. You need to see him get back to scoring efficiently at a higher volume. You need Cade to maybe pull some heroics like he did against the New York Knicks and pull out some wins for you. You need Malik Beasley to continue to shoot threes at high volume, make them. You need THJ to get him back to making threes at high volume like he was before the injury. Like, I really think it just all falls in the offense because I don't see the defense being able to pull it together to where it actually matters until Asar is able to play 25 plus minutes.
Yeah, I totally agree. And to your Cade point, like it's tough. It's really tough, I think, to ask him to like do more because I think that where he's at right now is overtaxed, right? I think he's third in the league in time of possession, like per possession.
I got another number to help you out here with this, and then you can keep going. Not only is he towards the top of the league in assists, obviously he's scoring a ton for the Pistons. I saw a stat today that he's third in the league in points generated off his assist. So he's quite literally creating everything the Pistons have. Like whatever they're able to get right now is because of Cade. So asking him to do more than that is just you're basically asking him to be Luka, and he's not Luka.
Right, and that's not fair. You know, like he's great, Cade, and he's been great. And I think like the assist point is a good one. I think that he is flash. Like as a passer, is the happiest I've been with Cade this year. As a passer, as a playmaker, because the turnovers are high, and that is a problem, no doubt. And I do think like the turnovers do have to come down when this team is like super competitive. There's no doubt about it. But a lot of his turnovers are because his handle is so bad. I don't want to say so bad, but he does struggle to deal with contact and keep the ball alive, right? Like he just does. He's not exactly a have it on the string guy. And like, I think because of that, like that's kind of where a lot of his quote unquote problems, or I should say limitations, peek their head is due to that handle a little bit. But like you said, he's not a guy where it's like throw him out there with a couple shooters and a lob threat, and it's like a great off. Like he's not Luka, he's not quite Trae Young, and that's okay because the thing that separates Cade is like different from a lot of the primary creators around the league. He's a good defender, so you can conceivably build a really good defense that features Cade, not necessarily just around Cade, but you can build one that features Cade, and I think that that's kind of where the Pistons, you know, team building possibilities ramp up to me is thinking about what it could be on both ends of the floor, but. No, I think you said it. Like starting Asar would solve a lot of our problems, and it might open a couple other ones up just because of some of the problems that he'll bring offensively, especially early on. But I've liked some of what I saw from Asar so far offensively. I'm not sure about you, but I feel like the passing has still been there. The athletic, like he still looks like the most athletic guy on the floor. It looks like he's still seeing the game, you know, kind of, I don't want to say in slow motion, but it feels like he's making all the right reads pretty consistently. He's being maybe more aggressive than he needs to be, but he's getting back. Like, it's been good, but like you said, he's not playing real minutes. So I don't know that that's really even an answer, right?
Yeah, I mean, until he can play longer minutes, it can't be an answer. So that's why on the last episode, I sounded so pessimistic on this last episode because it's hard to really see, like, what's the answer here? Like, what can they do with the personnel they already have that can solve these issues. There's the answers they do have can't play longer stretches. Tobias has not been what you've wanted him to be with the amount of money you put into him. And you're getting like I feel like you're probably getting the best version of Cade that we kind of maybe I guess some of us maybe expect him to be maybe a little bit more efficient, but I would say this is probably like peak version of what you expected out of him.
Though,
like I don't know how much better any of us expected him to be. Like he's shooting nearly 40% from three. He's taking a lot more pull-up threes. He's playmaking his I almost cursed on the podcast, but he's playmaking his bleep off. Like I don't know how much better you really expected Cade to be. So it's hard to really say, okay, you need more out of Cade. I think you're getting about what you expected. You really just gotta hope Jaden Ivey like kind of burst through. That's really all you got, because I don't like it's hard without making a trade. Without making a trade or something, it's just hard to find answers within the roster.
That probably is the answer, is making a trade, like shifting the roster around, because it's not good enough. Another thing that would help is a couple more foul calls for our boy C2.
I
hate to be the ref guy. I'm never the ref guy, but I'm calling balls and strikes up here. He needs a couple more calls.
No, it's egregious. It's getting bad with the foul calls, man. But that's all I've got. You got anything else you want to throw out there before we wrap up the podcast?
Anything else I want to throw out there?
Anything
positive? Oh, anything positive. Feels like Fontecchio turning it around a little bit. I don't know. That's nice. Cade's playing really well. That's exciting. I think that's the most important thing. I don't know. Can I just give you my quick vision of the future of the Pistons that I've been thinking about? I spend a lot of time at work. All right, I spend a lot of time at work. It's a purely physical job, so I'm just thinking about a lot of things. But the Pistons are near the top of that list. When the Herb news broke, I think the next thing that the Pistons need is like an elite wing defender. And I know that's like much easier said than done, but think about it. Then if your core is Cade, Asar, elite wing defender, maybe Herb. Now he's about as good as it gets, but maybe Herb-ish. That kind of idea. I feel like you can go wherever, because then you're building around three fantastic defenders, two of which are like all defense level theoretically. Even if you have bad like rim protection, or not even rim protection, because Cade and those guys will help your rim protection, but even if you have like a offensively slanted center, we'll say, like, your defense will still be really good, because having three fantastic elite defender, Cade's not elite, but three really good defenders, that helps a lot, and you'd have positional versatility and everything. Or you could go the other way and keep building that defense, and then you could just be the Magic, and Cade's your Paulo/Franz. I guess he'd have to be both in this scenario. Or maybe not. Maybe we get a player who's good at both offense and defense. That's a hell of an idea there.
No, I will say this before we wrap up the podcast. Maybe we bring you back on the podcast to discuss this even further. But that last point you hit on, the Pistons need to hit an identity. There needs to be an identity with this team.
Yes.
Like you mentioned with Orlando. Orlando, they're not going to be a great offensive team. They're going to get their offense from Paulo, from Franz, but they've built a nothing.
And in transition.
Right, yes, transition from their defense. They've built nothing but lengthy wing defenders and switchable defenders. They're big, and they can they are one of the best defensive teams in the league. That's their identity. Houston, they're building their identity. The Pistons the Pistons' identity is Cade. Like, you don't really have like anything out of like, they don't know what they're building. Or maybe they do know. Maybe Trajan does know. He just hasn't been given the opportunity yet to do it. But that's what they're missing. They need to build around something, whether it's we want to go full offense, whether it's we want to surround Cade with just pure spacing, let him go score, or whether it's, like you mentioned, go get defenders and just be like a great defensive team that relies on Cade to provide the scoring, and then we get out in transition. Like, you need to have something you're building towards. And right now it seems like they're just kind of throwing stuff at the wall and seeing, okay, let's see what sticks, and then we'll go from there.
100%. Yeah. Like, I think you look at Houston, their half court offense is terrible, but they're like an average offense period, because they're in transition so much. So we just need to get Asar his Tari, like that's kind of where I'm at. And then we've got Cade already. That helps you a bit. And like, them having those wings and being so athletic has allowed Şengün to thrive in a completely different role defensively. And now it feels like we're opening this whole new world of like, whoa, so Şengün can survive on an elite defense, or even help an elite defense as a roamer. Like, the possibilities kind of become endless when you really find your identity and start to build things around it. So I'm totally with you there. And I think defense is just kind of the easiest way to go. Like, I think you're not, which sounds unfair, but it's like, you could probably find that next elite defender before you can find like a Franz Wagner to be a second option.
Right. I will say this, and then we have to go. I really want to see the Pistons get a stretch five, an offensive heavy center. I just want to see what it would look like. I really think it would look I just want to see what it would look like. I think it would open up
Probably
a lot
better.
of things.
Well, they have Isaiah Stewart. It was supposed. That's
Well,
the
he
thing.
just stopped. He just
I know.
stopped shooting threes now. So it's like,
I know.
I
know.
But
it's very bad.
Yeah, it's disappointing. But we'll wrap it up there.
Not bad.
Matt, appreciate you coming on. Let everyone know where they can find your podcast and find you on Twitter.
Yeah, find me on Twitter at Grip101, the podcast. Shout out to my guy Kyle. Teal or no Teal. You can find us on Spotify or Apple. We don't do the whole thing. That seems like too much work. Spotify or Apple. We let the hair down a little bit more over there. It's not as buttoned up as Locked On Pistons. And we talk about the Pistons, but we also talk about the rest of the league. So if you care about the other 29 teams, then it's a cool place to be. 100.9 The Mitt. If you're in Middle Michigan, I'm on there a couple times a week. It's a fluid thing. You never really know, but you might turn it on 6 to 7, the payoff, Ben Bosher. I might be on producing and we might be talking hoops or talking anything else. Who knows? But that's where you can find me. Thank you, Ku. I appreciate it, man.
Of course, man. We'll get you back on here whenever you're free, man. Enjoyed talking with you. Obviously, we always talk, but I enjoy having you on the podcast, man. I appreciate all of you guys making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. Look at my phone. Still no update. I'm going to go to bed with no update. I don't know what's going on, but it is what it is. Oh, wait, hold on. We did just get – I swear to God, I knew it would happen. We just got the update. Literally as we're wrapping it up. They signed Javonte McCoy. He's played –
I have no Javonte McCoy analysis, unfortunately. I was excited to be the guy that knew something about a G League player or whatever that we signed. I got nothing, unfortunately.
All right, we're just going to leave it there. There's nothing to talk about with that. I'm sorry I disappointed all of you guys.
Where are you seeing? I thought you were going to do a bit and be like, we signed somebody good. Or like,
we
traded for Brandon Ingram. And
no.
Try to get a reaction out of me.
No, the PR team just tweeted it out. So, all right, we'll wrap it up. Thank you guys for listening. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe out there. Till next time, peace out.